too. Hey there.
Hello.
Hi, Vince. Ay, ay, ay.
We had
Okay, let's.
we had a little visit from Lynn Baca during our council meeting the other day. Just she wanted to introduce herself, which was nice.
Yeah. She did a presentation at the CCAT organization on Monday. That's like the alternate to CCI for the Metro commissioners.
Mhm.
And she did a great job. She did a great job. She talked about what NATA's priorities are, and I thought she was back right into it. And
Yeah.
so I think it's great that she's on the commission, and I think we've got a friend.
Yep.
So
Yep.
maybe we should have her come to one of our Smart Commute meetings and introduce herself to everybody. That's a good one to add, I think. So
Yeah,
great.
I was going to suggest that because she is a friend. She always has been. So we want to keep her in the loop. So I'm not sure if that's the same meeting I was in on Monday, where they had a panel presentation going, the
Yes.
governor. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And she did a great job.
Yeah, I thought she did too. So that's great.
I'm not so sure about the
All right,
rest.
I'm looking to see who.
All right. Do we have a, pardon?
Kyle. Kyle's on.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Jessica is going to be a few minutes late. She said that might be her connecting now. And
Okay.
Emily Atencio won't be in unless it's later. She has something that she's got to do
Okay.
that just came up at work this morning. And there's Joe, he's on. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Let's start the meeting.
Yay.
Okay, let's start the meeting then. I'd like to call the Smart Commute group together, and we'll just move forward with the approval of October 2020 minutes and also the January 2021 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at them? Any changes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, they're approved. Next, we have treasurer's report. Karen, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick, there's a couple of things that might stand out to you. We're finally getting some of those Cmac reimbursements. Those are the Dr. Cog reimbursements. We had about 19,000 in that finally. And then under salaries, you can see it looks pretty high. Those are the salaries for December that came in January. And sometimes, I think I explained last time, it just depends on when we get the checks run through the system, when it shows up in our bank account. So it's pretty high for January, won't be quite as high for February. The other thing to show you is the insurance is kind of high, 621, and that insurance covers 3 different policies that all renew. 2 of them are quarterly renewals and one's an annual renewal, and that's for directors and officers liability, general liability, and workman's comp. And then the next one, the accounting CPA. So we have 3 accountant accounts. One of them is Spice and Company, and they do the 990, and that was $750 for last year, and it came through in January. That's a really good price to do a 990 for us. That's the nonprofit tax report. And then we have the Stevenson and Company CPA, and they do all our payroll accounting. And then we have Catherine Weiss, who does our bank reconciliation, and all of those came through in January, and that's why it's such a high. Usually it's something like $200
Right.
is the highest we've had in the past. So just want to let you know that those are anomalies, but they come out the first of the year. And then we always renew our Association of Commuter Transit membership. It's our professional organization, and it's $850. The good news about that is it's part of our Cmac grant, so we'll get reimbursed that amount through our grant. And then you can see we've got a healthy current balance, 50,000, and still quite a few bills out there. That includes some money that we are going to put into the Flex Ride. We're going to put that aside and put it in the Flex Ride. And I haven't billed Thornton for the Flex Ride this year yet either. And this year, Broomfield's going to participate in the Flex Ride. So I think we're okay. It's the old story. We're always good January, February, March, April, May, and then we start buying down the money we have. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So can you go, Broomfield decided to go in with the Flex Ride, you're saying? So,
Yes.
and
So
can you,
yes,
yeah, all right.
yes,
You're cutting out. I'm sorry, Karen. Is she gone?
Looks like she may have frozen.
two biggest users of Flex Ride, although there are other people who use it. It shows that there are 400 people from Federal Heights who work at Amazon, for example, and there's 162 people from Broomfield who work at Amazon. Thornton numbers are higher than that. And one of the issues that the Amazon workers from Broomfield have is that the Broomfield Flex Ride program that Broomfield has only goes to the west side of Huron. And so we've tweaked the Flex Ride so that it will meet the Broomfield Flex Ride and pick those workers up and take them to Amazon. So it's a connection.
Okay.
And they never had that before. And when I talked to the city manager of Broomfield, she said, we probably ought to be contributing to this. And I said, we'd love that. And then we will look to see how we can extend that program in the next year to other places on the very far northeast side of Broomfield. There's another Amazon building going in on Huron at 160th. And when that opens up, we'd like to be able to have a route that takes that Flex Ride over there.
Okay.
And our Flex Ride grant allows us to make those kinds of changes. They have to be approved by RTD, but the fact that Broomfield is interested in taking a share of the cost of this means that we might be able to expand the service.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Anyone else?
So we would look for, an acceptance of the treasurer's report if there aren't more questions.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
Just one comment, if Broomfield is such a giving mode, I think Vince and I could find some use for some more donations for a rail line.
Well, Troy, it's interesting you would say that. If you just recently read the op-ed in Boulder where the progressive now says we don't want a rail line. And I talked to Mayor Quinn yesterday and said, you're sending mixed messages. Do you want a rail line or don't you want a rail line? You can't come out and have the governor say, by God, you better put a rail line in, and then come out and say, well, many of us don't think we want a rail line, or it's not a fiscal responsible decision. So you got a hard job, you guys.
Yeah. So what's his comment? I really am curious. I mean, is it a mixed council, or what are we talking about here?
No, I think it's just Pat's a CPA, and I think he's always maintained that there are other ways to provide mobility to the Northwest Corridor besides a train so costly. I think he's looking at it from a financial investment aspect, and the cost that it doesn't, the ridership doesn't pay its way, and I think he's always maintained that. I'm not sure that he speaks for his council on, because that's one of their topics all the time is let's get the Northwest Rail. I continue to suggest that the best opportunity for them is to help us find funding to move that rail over to Broomfield at some point as a spur, and then pick up Longmont. So take the Northwest Rail, North Line, finish it out, move a spur over and connect it to Broomfield, because 36 seems to work pretty well with the Flatiron Flyer. And this would be something that would then service the north end of Broomfield. That does leave Louisville out in the cold. So I don't have the answers. I just have lots of suggestions.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty interesting because I've heard Pat, really talk on both sides of that, so especially, he was an advocate when he was the former mayor, in Metro Mayors, the caucus, and always pushing for rail and for his city. So it's pretty interesting to hear changes of views, so.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I think we need to have an outreach to Longmont, because if Boulder wants to go to just having their bus, that leaves Longmont out at the end of a stick and nowhere to go. I think we ought to have an outreach to Longmont and see if they want to see a extension of the North Line to them instead of going through Boulder.
Karen, you got any comments about that? I know.
Yeah, I think I would throw that back to the RTD directors. The one thing I will say is Longmont will tell you that they have a travel shed. Half the people in Longmont go to Boulder for work and the other half come down elsewhere. So Troy or Vince, if you want to make a comment on that.
Vince's
Sure. My turn. So yeah, there's a couple problems with the spur off the end line to Longmont. I think you're going to have some pieces that travel through Weld County, which is not in the RTD district. That could be problematic. And Longmont's got LD and LX, right? Express buses that go from Longmont to Union Station faster than the train, and it's hard to get people to ride them. So, there's this tension between do they need it or do they want it? And it's tough, but yeah, we need to explore it and quickly, because the governor said we have to build it in 4 years. So.
All right.
Yeah, that's funny, Vince. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So is it shovel ready? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, bring your shovels.
Yeah. All right. At this point, I think we just have to wait and see. I don't think we can address that right now. So let's move. Thanks for that comment though, Jean. So anybody else have any questions on the treasurer's report or comments? Could I have a motion for approval, please? Or did I? Okay.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, a bigger vision. All right.
Well, this is exciting for us. We internally in the staff had talked a lot about some of the issues we're seeing at Smart Commute, some of the funding issues we're seeing, some of the perceptions are out there about Smart Commute. And I know we've come to you with this before. We want to roll out a name change and a brand change and an activity change to Smart Commute Colorado instead of Smart Commute Metro North. We own the URL. We bought it a couple of years ago and we continue to own it. And let me tell you why we're there and what we think we could do. when we first started Smart Commute, it was the NADA Transportation Management Organization of North Metro or something like that for about a month. And we were housed in the Metro North Chamber over in the Orchard, and Deb Obermeyer gave us free space. And so the board at the time, of which Barry Gore was one of them, said, I think we need to call ourselves something clever. And we threw out a whole lot of names, and Smart Commute came up. And we did some research, and there was already a smartcommute.org in North Carolina. So we thought, well, we'll just use Smart Commute, we'll tag something on there. And Deb says, well, why don't you tag on Metro North? Because we're the Metro North Chamber, you're with the chamber, so let's do Smart Commute Metro North. And we agreed to do that. It is a very long email address, and there's a perception out there that we just serve a small portion of northeast corner of the metro. It's interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about some poaching that's attempted poaching that's going on by some of the other transportation management organizations that abut us, who think that we just do a little section of northern Adams County, northeast Adams County, the Thornton, the North Glen, the Brighton. Our name doesn't tell people what we do. And there are a couple of other things that are happening that we think now's the time to roll out this Smart Commute Colorado. 6 Commuting Solutions changed their name to just Commuting Solutions. It's not unheard of in the TMO world. Southeast Denver changed their name. There have been a lot of name changes as time goes on, and our organization is almost 10 years old now. Wanted to throw that out. We believe there are a lot of circumstances at play right now. We learned through the COVID last year that our outreach efforts are very constrained when we can't do in-public outreach. And what we've had to do is reinvent ourselves to do a lot of things remotely, virtually, provide lots of information that actually is not specific to the North Metro region, but could be it could be germane to anywhere, really. You know, how to efficiently telework, what kind of employer programs are out there for tax incentives, those kinds of things. As we roll into 2021, and thank you all for participating in the retreat, we looked at what else can we do, and we really believe that we can do some customized TDM services that will certainly serve our area, but could also be marketed to other areas that don't have a TMO. It's interesting because you know, we have Catherine Sanders, who's on the call today, who is one of the only people in the state of Colorado who passed the TDM certification exam. She has those credentials that very few people have. I think there's just a few others in Colorado and only a few nationally. And what that means is we have some really strong credibility in customizing TDM plans and customizing sustainability analysis. You know, we can evaluate VMT and carbon reduction. We can evaluate a carbon footprint for an employer. We could do quite a few things with the credibility. Catherine has this. We have an incredible staff with Carson being able to do so much that he does in putting together videos and running these meetings and putting webinars together. And Tammy, who's a wonderful marketing person, does all our social media marketing. We've got a lot to offer. And if you remember, before Rhiannon left, she said we should be writing white papers and being the expert on many things. And we now embrace that. One of the things that also occurred to us is some new legislation that's coming down maybe by as early as next year. And it's part of the governor's greenhouse gas emissions efforts but it's also the Air Quality Control Council and the Regional Air Quality Council, talking about ETRP. And if you remember, last year we had a presentation by Stuart Anderson. It's employee trip reduction program. It's a really employee-based trip reduction program where large employers are now going to be required to put together a policy and a program to reduce their employees' trips significantly if they're over a certain threshold. And they're still writing rules on this, but it could be 250 employees and more. The rules are being written, it's going to be put in place, and they're going to roll it out statewide. So the metro area that have TMOs already, they can rely on their TMOs to help them attain this requirement, attain the rule, attain the requirements, and be able to analyze them and report them. Other places are kind of out of luck because they don't have a TMO. That's where we can be a consulting TMO to them. And it's a way to bring in a little more income. It's also a way to get our name out there as the experts in the field. And while I think, you know, it will take us a little bit to roll out how this name change could happen, we'd really like to come back to you in the next month and give you a plan for rollout of this new branding. We'd like to make a big splash. You know, we need to refresh ourselves. 10 years and we haven't made a whole lot of changes. And we like to talk about, you know, search engine optimization, the kinds of things that could really be a big splash. It won't change what we do where we do it now. It will just increase our ability to bring in more sponsorship, more membership, and hopefully more money. You saw that we are functioning on a very small amount of money compared to other TMOs, and this is a way to help with that. So we'd like to come back to you with a plan for this rollout, what it would look like, how we'll do it, how soon we would do it, and then have you tell us where we're hitting the mark, where we're not hitting the mark, and then formally approve our name change to Smart Commute Colorado. And certainly it's up to all of you on the board to put restrictions on that or give us carte blanche or whatever you feel is appropriate. But we really feel like this is the time to do that. We're eager to do it. We have the staff in place to do it. We have the talent to do it. We have the enthusiasm to do it. So I'll leave it at that and let you run the discussion.
All right. Well, for me, I think this is a great idea. You know, I think we should always be moving forward, always refreshing our vision. But I am, and you addressed this a little bit, I am just concerned about staff and the ability to take on such a big project. You know, because I mean, Karen, you know, we know how much you guys do, you know, so that's my concern. Anybody else have any?
Well, thank you, Joyce.
Yeah.
And I'll say, you know, we'll build into that more hours for the staff if they'd like more hours. I've talked at length to Carthen about this, and he is my only full-time employee, but he certainly has bandwidth in his work schedule to do this. He's excited about it. I've just added more hours for Catherine. We want to plug Tammy into a couple of TDM talk about next. But we do think we have the bandwidth to do it. And if we don't, we will contract some of this stuff out like we do with Jean on the Flex Ride. She's an employee of Smart Commute, but she is specified in time and efforts to the program she's running. So we can do that as well.
Thanks.
So
Anyone-
so Karen, you would be supporting Colorado as opposed to just the region, the North region? You'd be supporting the whole state?
Well, not necessarily. I'm not sure the whole state would contract with us, Deb. What we're saying is we will do everything we do now for North Metro. We're going to be just like ACEREP. We're going to expand our territory to people who want to use us as their contract TMO to help them put together an ETRP program or a telework program or any of those other things. And we can do that already. We don't need to change what we are to do that. What we want to say is we want to change our name to reflect that.
Okay.
Are there,
Are you also
Oriole-
thinking of changing the logo? Is there rebranding or just the name rebranding or even a
I think that's
total
a great,
design?
yeah, great discussion to have. We talked about changing the logo a couple of years ago and no one had an appetite for it, but I think that's part of the discussion. You know, maybe it's time to rebrand the logo.
I would be fine with that. One comment and two questions. And I don't want to poo-poo this idea at all, but and Deb can weigh in on this, but you know, just be warned, with a name and a radical logo change, you get a great deal of confusion.
Mhm.
You know, we're still
Yep.
trying to patch up and make sure people know that Metro North Chamber, you know, was merged. It didn't completely blow up and go away. And that's ongoing, whether, I mean, we're dealing with it with legislators, trying to convince them that we're regional and that the chamber functions have merged into another organization, and it's a stronger organization because of that. So we will have a little strange pushback. It's just part of the deal. I mean, as long as Smart Commute, I think, stays in the name, somehow that
Yeah.
can be, you know, a very big advantage. In regards to the question, it seems like we had a little bit of a territorial power struggle a while back, Karen, with a couple of neighboring TMAs.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that, you know, we're on a power trip to take them over unless they would need to be assisted perhaps, but is there a territorial guidelines for the TMAs? You know, I think about Angie and I think over towards Boulder, and
Mhm.
I don't want to send a adversarial note to those folks. But on, and, you know, when we look at the territory that we have, I mean, Broomfield is certainly not Adams County. Erie is certainly not Adams County. Where I'm setting up in Southwell County right now, it's sure as hell not Adams County. But we've got communities that either use our services or don't know that they need to use our services or are enthusiastic about development. So anyway, I just throw that territorial question out as well, and then I'll go to mute where I belong.
But those are good comments. Karen. Yeah, so, and you kind of addressed that.
So, sure. So we, in our contract with Way to Go, Dr. Cog, our territory is specified for the Dr. Cog contract we have. And it's, and I don't have it. Maybe Carson, do you have I've got it. I just don't know how to find it on my thing. I can send it to you later, but the TMOs have specified regions for the Dr. Cog contract. And we will still keep that region. We are not going to expand that footprint. What we're going to say is we can help outside of our region on a contract for anybody in the state. And we can do this anyway. It's not, has nothing to do with the name change. It was kind of our epiphany that if we're doing this, we should just change our name. We can help anybody do anything as a contract. If they are looking for help with TDM services or to do a carbon footprint analysis, we can do that. Our outreach and service area for the Way to Go program is defined by Dr. Cog, and we can send that map to you and show you. We have a very large area. And the problem that we've been having with Audrey and now with Angie has to do with them wanting to take some of our territory. not us taking their territory. And we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
I have a comment for you. What if you changed it to Smart Commute of Colorado? To me, that
No, I think I think it's too confusing to put an of in your name. I get what you're saying. I just want to also say we always refer to ourselves as Smart Commute, and that won't change. We won't say Smart Commute Colorado. We very seldom say Smart Commute Metro North, but all of our information, our emails and all that say Smart Commute Metro North. But I understand what you're saying, Jean. I just think putting of in the title of our name is unnecessary.
well, just without the of, it sounds like we are the Smart Commute for Colorado. But with the of in there, Smart Commute of Colorado, that's more a subset of Colorado. End of comment.
Sorry, I muted myself and I couldn't figure out how to unmute. I like that. I mean, I like your reasoning on that. Let's have that discussion. We'll have it internally and we'll bring it back.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, Karen, this is Kyle. I think you addressed
Yeah.
my concern, and that was, are we doing or potentially doing these consulting services as justification for a name change? Or are we going to do the consulting services because we actually have the capacity and we think that this is a good business move for the organization? I don't recall that we discussed this at the retreat. Maybe I missed it, but I think what I hear you saying is that internally, the organization realized that we have more resources that we can deploy outside of our geographic area. And if that's the case, I guess I just want to confirm, I think you're saying this, call it a business line for lack of a better term, is something that you recommend the organization pursue whether or not we change the name. Sorry. Is that a fair statement? You'd recommend that we pursue this whether or not we change our name?
Yes, and I might say we already do this or have done it without a name change. We just think it's important to change our name so that we're not perceived as being a small North Adams County TMO, but in fact, we're, you know, a TMO, a full service TMO. And so it's the latter, it's not the former. And we can change our name without doing anything more, or we can do more without changing our name. I think we need to rebrand ourselves. And the reason I think that has to do with the poaching that's happening with the other TMOs and the misunderstanding of where we're located and what we do. Want you to know we are not expanding or poaching on anybody else. We'll keep our footprint the way it is, but we want to be able, you know, Audrey does this all the time on 36. She throws herself out there as the expert on lots of stuff and takes subcontracts. The NETC does it, Northeast Transportation Connections. Southeast does it. Another one that does it is the Cherry Creek one, the Transportation Solutions. This is a way for us to be able to assert our expertise, and a way also to manage to bring in a little bit more money into the organization. We do the same thing every year over and over. And last year, when we couldn't do the same thing, it occurred to us that there's more to do than what we do. If we just want to be the same person every year, then all of us are bored, I think. I think this is a way to show how we've grown, highlight the expertise we have, and look to broaden the base, because quite frankly, if we don't broaden the space, we're not going to have enough money to keep running the programs that we run now. The money we get from DRCOG and the local match for that simply isn't enough to carry the organization. And when we run on less than $300,000 a year, and the other organizations run on over $600,000 a year, we're missing the mark somewhere. We've got to broaden our base.
That makes sense. Okay, anyone else? All right, so you're going to go back to the drawing board, have a conversation concerning the name change, if you should insert of or not. I personally kind of like Smart Commute Colorado, but we'll see how it shakes out with everybody. So,
Well, Joyce, I'll tell you, we own Smart Commute Colorado. We don't own Smart Commute of Colorado.
all
I'm
right,
not sure we can get that one.
okay,
When we first became Smart Commute, Metro North,
mhm,
nobody else was using Smart anything. And I give Barry Gore a lot of credit because he was a thoughtful branding kind of guy, marketing guy. And
right,
he said, we need something dynamic. We need it to be not Transportation Management Organization of the North or something like that.
right.
So he said, Smart Commute is the way to go. We're talking about how to get people to commute smarter. And so I think that when we talked about it recently, when Audrey changed her name from 36 Commuting Solutions to Commuting Solutions, and others changed their name, Southeast changed their name, we thought, well, what is something we could do? And we researched it, and Smart Commute Colorado wasn't taken, so we grabbed it. I think what's interesting about this is now many different organizations throw smart into it. I saw one yesterday, SMART, and that's the transit agency in the Aspen Telluride area. Their organization calls themselves SMART. It's an acronym for something. But everywhere you turn around now, people have SMART in their name. We were the first ones to do that. So we would retain Smart Commute no matter what we do, whether it's Smart Commute Colorado, Smart Commute of Colorado, or whatever else we come up with. Just want to let you know we own the URL for Smart Commute Colorado.
Cool. Well, I support
So-
that particular name anyway. So, okay. All right. Anything else concerning the bigger?
And we'll come back to you. We'll talk about what this would look like and what the rollout would be and how long it would take us to do this and maybe what we would talk about in splash branding or something like that. So either next month or the month after that, it won't be an immediate change, but we'll work out a game plan and bring it back to you.
Okay, and that was one of my questions, how you're going to market this or because
Yeah.
I think that the education piece, changing the name just a bit, I agree with Troy. There is a little pushback, where people get confused. They really do. I mean, even when
Yeah. We're not
Metro-
consolidating anything. Yeah,
right,
we're not bringing anybody else on. We're not really changing the name much.
right,
So I'm hoping we won't have the same confusion that Etrp had. And also, we're all the same people here. There's not a lot of shuffling around. We're not, changing the CEO. We're not changing the staff any of that. So hopefully we've learned a lesson from that, what Etrp has gone through. And that we won't encounter those same things. Also, I want to say Etrp has a huge region that they're known for. I can tell you there are no state legislators who know us. We have a different, our budget is so small compared to Etrp, and the work that Etrp does is so large and regionally meaningful compared to what we do. We support a smaller group of stakeholders, I think is what I want to say. So, but I do appreciate what Etrp's gone through, and good for them that they're hanging in there and keeping their membership and doing a good job and not missing a beat, even though they've had some challenges. So I appreciate that.
So Karen, you just made a comment about the legislature not knowing who we are. That makes me think maybe we should bring on for at least a presentation, Kyle Mullica, who is our representative in this area,
Yeah,
you know, and get some information out there and maybe have him be our advocate.
Plus, I think the benefit of a name change, and to Kyle's point, you know, whatever the reason is, it's a great way to splishy splash all over the place and breathe life into
Right.
all the services and things that you do. And that pays big benefits. And so that's a big benefit too.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Karen, I have
Well,
a
thank
comment,
you.
if
Yeah.
I may, regarding
Henry.
possible options. I was just wondering, have you ever thought about expanding so commute is really seen as going to and from work. Have you ever thought about, if instead of commute, you're thinking about mobility, smart mobility as something that it's broader in terms of, and I don't want to make it your life harder in any way. I'm not saying I don't agree with the rebranding or actually with what you are proposing. I was just thinking that if this is the time when we are really thinking about our scope, our vision, I thought that maybe we can also even think if we wanted to change commute to something a little broader. And the other thing is, you are known as Smart Commute. Would we need to have Colorado on it? Could it be shortened and sweeter? I was just thinking if it's something that you wanted to think about.
I think those are great suggestions, and we'll talk about that internally. Yeah, I think everything's open for discussion at this point. We just wanted to bring this idea to you and tell you that internally, our staff and I think this is the time to do this, to make some changes, to rebrand ourselves in some manner, and do the splash, and we'll bring it all back to you. But I think that's interesting to talk about the difference between commute and mobility, because you're right, we do more than talk about commuting. So that's, you know, between your suggestion and Jean's suggestion and others, we'll look at this and come back to you. But
Right.
thank you for indulging us in that discussion. We're excited about it. Internally, our staff is excited about it. We just think that the opportunity that was presented by COVID, that seemed to be not an opportunity, indeed became an opportunity to reevaluate ourselves, what we do and how we do it. And instead of doing the same old thing year in and year out, we had to reinvent ourselves a number of times this last year, and we managed to do it, and we did a good job at it. So that sort of was the impetus for us saying, what should we be? Yeah.
I think it's great. And I appreciate staff looking at all the different angles, you know, because we have to retain our momentum and move forward. You know, we can't stay stagnant. That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else before we move on? I don't hear anybody. So Karen, Colorado 7.
Yeah. So Colorado 7 and I-270 TDM pursuit. So transportation demand management are strategies that are incorporated to reduce congestion and improve air quality in a number of manner. Sometimes it's increasing mobility options. Sometimes it's to reduce congestion within a construction zone, to improve safety. There are lots of reasons that either an employer or an agency like CDOT need transportation demand management strategies in place, and they need someone to run them. They need someone to run those, and they need someone to evaluate them and do an analysis at the end to see how successful they were. And there's an effort at CDOT, and has been for some time, to employ on contract TMO to do those kinds of strategies. on US 36. 36 Commuting Solutions had a contract that's still going to do TDM on US 36, and their TMO has a contract with CDOT, with HPTE, I guess, to do that. We in the past have had a contract with CDOT for the construction on segment 2, which was from US 36 to 120th, and for segment 3 from 120th to E470 Northwest Parkway. And we will hopefully have other contracts with CDOT. And Tammy Harriet in the last couple of years has been our go-to CDOT TDM contractor through Smart Commute. They pay us separately from our Dr. Cog monies, and I allocate her time to those projects. And I chose Tammy when we hired Tammy because she has worked in the field for many years. I'm not going to say how many, Tammy, because you're still very young, but she worked for consultants like Kiewit and like Hammond and a number of different consulting companies. And so she has a relationship with the engineering aspects of these projects, and we put her on segment 3. She did a fabulous job, and she has been our technical advisory committee stakeholder from Smart Commute onto the Colorado 7. The Colorado 7 project is a coalitional project that are looking at the roadway from Brighton to Boulder, looking at the improvements on that highway to accommodate bus rapid transit, to accommodate stations, to accommodate pedestrian and bicycle. It's really an analysis that's fairly large in scope and is moving forward. And Tammy has been on that TAC committee and helping them determine what the next steps are. We're positioning ourselves to do Colorado 7 TDM. Because it's such a large footprint, we believe it makes sense to partner or divide the TDM up with Audrey at Commuting Solutions. She has inserted herself into this, and we believe it makes sense for her to do the Boulder and Lafayette piece, and then Smart Commute do the from 287 west or east to Brighton, because that's where we do service anyway. We know the elected officials, we know all the stakeholders, we know the businesses. And so we will be pursuing that TDM strategies, which we will put Tammy on. And we don't know how soon that'll happen. The money is out there right now just to do this analysis, and we're not getting paid for any of that, but we are attending those stakeholder meetings and giving input, and really valuable input, I believe, as well. And tomorrow at NADA, we will have the Colorado 7 presentation. I just wanted to say that if Smart Commute would like to have that Colorado 7 presentation, we can plug that in the next couple of months to have them come and give us an update on that. It's fairly fast moving, but it's very interesting because this is an opportunity to modernize State Highway 7 and make sure that connections are there, that bus rapid transit is there. And Kyle and I had the opportunity yesterday to meet with Shoshana and talk about how do we implement some of those things that are being requested from stakeholders on State Highway 7. For example, how do we put a bus rapid transit service in there sooner than later to start getting that TDM happening? And I'll report back to my staff later about how that went. I was very encouraged by having Shoshana come and talk to us on this portion that we represent. On the 270, I-270 TDM pursuits, this is an issue that was brought to my attention last week when Angie Malpietti called me and said, hey, how far do you guys come down on your TDM programs? What's the footprint of your TMO? This was pretty surprising to me because it's on the map at Dr. Cog and shows exactly where we're located. We go into Commerce City, just abut State Highway or I-70. And so Angie Angie's Northeast Transportation Connections abut us at 70. We're just north of 70, and she's got 70 and beyond. And she has part of Commerce City, and we have part of Commerce City. We've always had a very congenial relationship. And in fact, we've partnered on a number of things. They did a program on a bus route in Commerce City, and we bought the free tickets. I had extra money in my, this is a couple of years ago, I had extra money in my account, and I said to her, I can get you tickets for the 64th that you can hand out if you want to, as long as we can also have a banner up there that says we serve Commerce City. Her reasoning for asking me this question is she wants us to give up part of our territory and give it to her. She wants us voluntarily to move our boundaries north and give her 72nd inline part of the boundary that we do outreach for, because she wants to use 72nd as an option for people who would be traveling on 270, because she said she's getting the 270 TDM contract. News to me, 270 is in our quarter. So I said to her, well, that's surprising to me. We anticipated we would do 270. We've been focusing on it, thinking about how we would do that TDM. And because I'm on HPTE, I know that 270 is only in the planning stages right now. And in fact, there won't be any, any movement on it in 2021 or probably 2022. It's probably 2023. Angie does the Central 70 TDM. That's a $500,000 contract annually for 4 years. And she's butting up to the end of her 4 years on that. 500,000 they get for that contract. They use a lot of that money to actually do programs and put a bus together. It's not just operating money. It's the whole package. But she has added a few employees, and I think what happened when I talked to HPTE and said to Nick, what's this about NETC getting that contract? He said, yeah, Angie came to me and gave me a scope of work and a contract, and she wanted us to look at it and give her that work. And I said, well, you know, it's not in her region. It abuts her region, but it's not in her region. He said, I didn't know that. So I had to send him the map and say, look, this is within our region. This is what Dr. Cog has determined is our region. And we were anticipating having Tammy work on that project because it's a highway project. It's not a neighborhood project. And some of the value that Angie brings is she is Latina and she understands that community that's in Central 70. And I said to Nick, well, are you ready to pull the trigger on that? He said, no, it's way premature. And she just wanted to get that under contract. So when we're ready to get started, we've got a contract. And I said, okay, well, where does that leave Smart Commute? And he said, honestly, I didn't know that you guys had that territory. This is part of the problem I'm talking about with this Northeast, you know, Smart Commute Metro North. And so he said, well, we're not pulling a contract on that right away. Why don't you and Angie talk? So in talking to Angie, I told her, I don't think we're willing to move our boundaries out of 72nd. To me, that North Metro rail line is really important for us to be able to do the outreach on all of that. What affects the Commerce City 72nd station also affects all the stations to the north. If there's an outage, if there's a service issue, if there's anything going on, that's within that package of what we do for RTD, and we have a contract with RTD as well. So long and short is, I said to Angie, how we might share this. And because 270 abuts 70, that community outreach piece that you do so well should be your piece, and the highway piece should be our piece, or some combination of that. And I'm willing to talk about that. And I haven't heard back from her. And she used to text me all the time with, hey, girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And now it's crickets. So this is part of the issue we have when all of us are looking for contracts that will give us enough money to keep operating. And this is part of the discussion, as you can see how it fits into the piece above. I suspect we will get that 270 TDM contract. When it comes out, we'll get part of it at least. It's not unusual to give TDM contracts through CDOT to TMOs. I don't conflict of interest for me because Margaret Bowes sits on HPTE as I do, and she manages the TMO on the 70 corridor, and CDOT is paying that group to do TDM on the 70 corridor. So precedence has been set. And if the event comes that they say you can't be on the Transportation Commission and get this contract, which has never been an issue, then I will make a decision at some point to either leave the commission or leave Smart Commute, one of the two, if that's what has to happen. Because this is too important to our organization to not go after this 270 TDM. On the segment 3 TDM, it was $80,000. It was $80,000 over 2 years. That's not a whole lot, but it paid Tammy's salary for 2 years. So anyway, I just want to give you an update on that.
Karen, did you say that there's an opportunity to get an update on the Colorado 7 work potentially to the board? So I just,
Yes.
as one board voice, I'd be curious to hear others on the board, but I would be interested in hearing that. But certainly would love to know if others on the board are similarly interested.
I would certainly agree with that. I'd love to see that.
I would too, Karen.
That'd
And,
be
you know,
great.
many of our members don't attend the NADA meetings, so I think that would be an opportunity for all of us to listen to that. And also, back to the 270, you use the word voluntarily, you know, so that throws up all kinds of red flags for me. I'm just wondering, and you addressed some of the repercussions, but what leverage, I guess, does she have to do this? Angie.
I don't think she has any. I think she was just thinking if we didn't come down very far, maybe we'd be willing to move up half a mile or something, not realizing that 72nd is an area that we've worked in quite a bit. And so I just told her we weren't interested in changing our boundaries.
Okay.
What they want to do is change their boundaries to come up into ours, just like what Audrey wanted to do when she wanted to come all the way over to I-25 and pull in everything that was of I-25, even though that's within our boundaries. Okay. So we have the establishing documents from Dr. when they acknowledged us as a working TMO. And so we have all that, okay. You know, we have it all legally defined. So it would be, her request was for me to agree to have her boundary change that would affect my boundary change. And I just said, we're not going to do that. And I see Joe has to leave, but I appreciate you being on, Joe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Any other comments? I don't hear any, so we'll move on to sponsorships and membership discussion.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, you know, we do sponsorships and we do memberships. And some people want to be members of Smart Commute. They think there's a value to them, but others really don't care to be inundated with all the information we have or come to any of our meetings or attend NADA or any of that. And generally we always do sponsorships for events. I'm thinking that we may want to have a change so that people who don't want to be members but still want to support the organization can just do sponsorships. And I know that other TMOs do that. They don't offer everybody a membership, but they offer everybody a sponsorship. And I'm looking at some of the things like XL Energy and some other ones who they want to be noticed as sponsoring an organization like ours because it's part of sustainability for them or part of an effort to support their community or those kinds of things. And so it occurred to me that because we're not having any events, but we're going to do a series of webinars and a series of presentations, that I might offer instead to some people a sponsorship package where their logo, and we would recognize them at any webinar that we produce or any presentation that we do. And when we do Transform next year, hopefully, or this year, hopefully in person toward the end of the year, that's built into it as well. It's just a way for us to catch those organizations and businesses who just don't see a value in membership because they're all working from home, or they've had to reinvent themselves as a business. The people who stay on as members, who don't come to our meetings, but go to the NATA meetings, they still see value in membership. And, that's the HDRs of the world, and Northwest Parkway, obviously. We're glad to have Pedro on the board, but up until now, they've continued to be a big supporter of us and haven't had a whole lot of benefit other than maybe getting to go to those NATA meetings and getting all the minutes and the information that's coming through and having one-on-one conversations. Some people just aren't interested in that. So just wanted to say, I'm looking at the change of how do we hold on to some of our income and investment through sponsorship versus membership. And I didn't know if anybody has any words of wisdom for me on that.
My only word of wisdom is to keep peace. Offer the sponsorship to your members first.
Okay.
And if nobody steps up, then go outside the membership. And that way you keep peace everywhere. But I understand we've had to do that on
Great
occasion.
advice.
Good piece of advice, Deb.
And that's what I'm hoping for, good piece of advice.
Mhm. Anyone else? Okay. Next, we have grants.
Okay, good. So we want to tell you we're going after 3 grants right now. But I'm not sure if we'll get any of them. One of them is Can Do Colorado e-bike program. This is an interesting program that we are using the money from the Flex Ride grant. We have about 100 grand in that. We don't have it, but it's available to us to do alternative mobility as part of that grant program. So we would use the local match, almost at 100 grand, to do this e-bike program. And the e-bike program would be run through Jean's office of the Flex Ride office. And what it really is the ability to get about 30 e-bikes that will be both recumbent and regular for employees to get to work for first and last mile. So we're looking at Adams County and Broomfield County, and these bikes would be we would own them, but we would lease, not really lease them, but allow people to have them. They would each have, the people in this program would each have a bike, and they would have to keep it at their house and use it to get back and forth to work most of the time. Like that would be not their primary source of commuting, but would be a preferred source of commuting when they could do that. And we are targeting, we're working backwards from St. Anthony North or the Orchard or Amazon to find out what employees live within a distance that an e-bike would help them get to work. And then Jane has the criteria in this grant. It comes through the Department of Energy, the Colorado Department of Energy. There's criteria in the grant of how you have to use it. We will pay for everything, the package to make it more efficient, the upkeep of the bike. And then at the end of the program, we can give them that bike. It's in the works, and I can bring you more about that once we finish the application. We sent in an inquiry. You had to send in a letter of inquiry and kind of flesh out what you thought your grant program would look like, and a dummy budget. And we sent that in and we made the cut. And then they offered us to flesh out the grant application and submit it by the end of this week, I think it is. And so Jean's worked on all of that. She's met with everybody she needs to meet with. She's met with the bicycle contractor, Bicycle Colorado. She's done the question and answers. And so we think we have a fairly good shot at this, and she'll be managing that program, and we won't have to come up with any smart commute money as local match for that. We're going to use the money out of the other grant to leverage this grant, which I think is brilliant. So that one is in the works. We have one that's another Revitalizing Main Street, Can Do Colorado, Safer Streets kind of program out of CDOT that is a telework focused program. There's about $85,000 left in that program, and they've done another call for a program. Each of those grants that they throw out are about $5,000. And we've talked about, you know, we've done a lot of this stuff for free already. We've put out all kinds of webinars and information on our website on how to do telework. One thing we haven't done is a wellness and ergonomics tips for teleworkers. And we think there's a real need for this. We have reached out through St. Anthony North and through Karen Bigelow, who used to work for St. Anthony North, to get an ergonomics expert who's willing to do a series of webinars for us to provide an organization. And so out of the grant, there would be, I think, about $4,000 of that would go to having this contract with this ergonomic wellness expert who would do these videos, produce these videos for us, and then we would own the videos, and then about $1,000 of that for us to manage the program. And we are hoping to partner with Community Reach. I haven't heard back from Rick Doucette on this, but we really want to do an organization like Community Reach. We did reach out to Imagine, which is another community similar to this, and what it is really training for their telework workforce. We chose Community Reach because of the kinds of programming that they do and the fact that they have a very large employee base, and that they give service to all the areas we give service to Broomfield and to Westminster and to Northglenn and to Thornton. So I'm hoping to hear back. The money is out there until it's gone. So we've emphasized that sooner is better than later for us to put that. We've got the grant written, we just need the partner. And then the last grant that we're looking at is $250, or $250, I wish. $2,500 for E470 safety grant. We went after one last year, we didn't get it. We focused last year on older drivers and safety training for older drivers. And we didn't get that grant, but we are looking now at the E470 safety grant application. And we haven't formalized who we're targeting, but in some statistics I got from CDOT, teen drivers are an issue, and there are a number of fatalities that happen with teen drivers. So we might focus on that. We're still talking about that, and Friday at our staff meeting, we'll probably flesh out that grant. I always ask my staff, is it really worth us going after these grants? It takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of brain power, and deadlines and all of that, and collaboration. And is it really worth it? We don't make a lot of money on these grants, but what it does is it establishes us as experts, and it provides outreach and community support that really help add to what we do and how we do it. And overwhelmingly, our staff has said, yeah, let's go after these. And it doesn't matter if we don't get them. What it does is it gives us the experience of writing these grants. All of us can say on our resume, we've written grant applications. You know, we've done the process. when we win an award, we feel good about ourselves. And it's a really team effort for us to put these grants together. So just wanted to give you an update that we continue to work hard on finding opportunities for us to put our name out there, to do community outreach, to provide a service, and to get the experience.
All right. I just have one question, Karen, and I may have missed it because I had to step away for a minute. But is there a portion of the e-bike grant that pays for Jean's salary? Or is that just, go ahead.
There's an administration amount that
Okay.
we would allocate to some of Jean's salary is fully paid by the Flex Ride grant.
Okay.
But we could enhance that. We can enhance that, and we can also charge some of Carson and Tammy's time to that grant. So there's a small amount of money, I think it's 23,000 in that e-grant, that we can charge off to other people's salaries as well.
Okay, thanks. All right, anyone else have any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to presentation webinar topics.
Right, so we really appreciate the outreach comments that we had last time at our retreat. And so we kind of listed the sorts of things that we thought might be of interest to you guys. And I have just added the Colorado 7 presentation to this on my notes. But Kyle had to leave the meeting, but and I'll talk to him offline, but I have seen his baseline development presentation twice now, and I love it. And even though it's a marketing piece in a way, it talks about what that development is doing for connectivity to Highway 7 and to I-25 and for the mobility hub. It's talking about how he's putting an internal bike network in that's not just a recreational bike network, but a commuter bike network, right? So we've heard through the years, yeah, it's great that we have trails and stuff for people to ride a bike for recreation, but some people want to ride a bike for commuting, and those trails don't go where I want them to go. The McQuinney group have taken that that suggestion and run with it so that they're commuter bike networks as well. The other thing that they're doing is they're working on making sure that there are charging stations for electric vehicles on their property. They're doing a pollinator approach to their landscaping. They're partnering with the Butterfly Pavilion and a STEM school that is on their property that will allow students to work directly with scientists that are interested in the biology of pollination. It's interesting, the whole thing really talks about how do you do development in today's world when greenhouse gas emissions are a problem, and how do you fit into an area that has some growth in it, not total growth in it? How do you plug in a development that sort of addresses a lot of the things that we're saying? And I saw it yesterday when we met with Shoshana Liu of CDOT to talk about the connectivity thing and what they're doing connected to Highway 7 and what they're doing to make sure that people can use alternative modes to get to transit and to get to, you know, e-bike opportunities and those kinds of things. So I'll talk to Al, but I think it's a great presentation. It's a short one, but it's really very interesting. The other one I think was the one that Pedro showed me, which is the climate change, sustainability, and resilience that you're doing at IBTTA, Pedro. And I think at some point, if you're comfortable sharing that with us, we'd like to see that. And so that was one put on here, and we can talk offline about that as well, Pedro, unless you have comments now.
Sure, yeah, I would be delighted to to let you know what we are trying to accomplish on that front. We are gathering some great interest around within our industry, and I think it's kind of coming along. I think that together with what Colorado is actually trying to do in terms of electrification and other ways to make our transportation more sustainable. Of course, I mean, being the Northwest Parkway manager, one thing I'm not really keen is to have less traffic. I want to have more traffic,
Yes.
which in a way is a conflict when we're talking about these things. But I think that people just don't have to stop going places and moving. We just have to do it in a sustainable manner. And so I really think there's a place for everyone. And I think we ought to be part of this transformation where we can still have traffic on our roads, but we have to do it in a way that does not harm our environment and you know, so that was kind of my push. We don't have really any specific initiatives other than just the willingness to raise this and we're looking at also installing electric charges along the Northwest Parkway or somewhere where the drivers can stop and charge their vehicle in a ultra fast way. So yeah, I'll be glad to work something around this and to make a webinar at some point if you'd like me to.
That sounds great. Yeah, I read your presentation. I thought, wow, that would be something, particularly because traffic isn't going to stop, and having express lanes really fits into reducing congestion on arterials and state highways and that kind of thing. So I thought that was great. I think we'd like to have Front Range Passenger Rail come and talk to us at some point. There have been some significant changes on Front Range Passenger Rail. CDOT is taking it over. I don't know where that's going yet, but at some point when I know where it's going, I'd like to have them come in and talk to us about that. I think this whole thing about the Etrp Outreach, so it's employee-based transportation transportation reduction program. And the rulemaking is going to happen in May. The draft rules are going out. And then I think by August, they'll be approved by the AQCC. And it will affect employers. And so we would like at some point between probably May and August to do a presentation to the Broomfield Chamber and also AC Rep on what these rules will look like and how they'll be rolled out and how it will affect large employers and how we can help. So that's on the radar. And then we continue to try to figure out how do we do just general webinars, presentations, tips to host a successful virtual meeting. We saw some stuff that was out in the media last weekend that we thought really spoke to many of the meetings we've been at that have been just awful, that have wasted our time, that have, you know, caused me to put my camera on dark and go get a drink or walk around my house or, you know, those kinds of things that we all probably do. Don't tell me you guys don't do that. You know you do it, particularly if it's a very long meeting.
Not
so,
us. Not
yeah,
us.
not us. Iron some shirts while you're listening to this. I don't know. So, anyway, we're putting that on, and then any other topics that you can think of for our presentations or webinars list. We're excited by this kind of stuff. We haven't been able to go out into the community and talk to people. We have had a pushback from RTD on doing any outreach for the N line. We had a whole program put together that we were going to go to 120 Wagon Road, and we were going to go to 88th, and we were going to give out free tickets to ride the train on the N line and ask people about what's important to you, you know, getting there fast, or having a good ride, or the connectivity. We were just going to do a number of questions on a survey, and we were told by RTD we could not gather on their property to do any kind of outreach because of COVID. And so we have really been stymied on even being able to help the N line get ridership. It's been frustrating. So under other, I have written down a couple of things. One is the RTD issues that are happening on the N line. We're at NADA tomorrow going to talk about those N line issues. We're going to talk about the pilot fare that is a local fare of $3 is going back up to regional fare at the end of March, which will be $5.25, and how that's going to affect the N line. And it's unfortunate because Vince and Troy got that regional fare put together, got the local fare instead of the regional fare put on a pilot program, and then COVID hit. And so now the statistics that are being gathered, the analysis isn't reflective of how people really ride a train to work. We're going to talk about those regional fare issues of this circle of everybody within the circle is $3 and everybody outside the circle is $5.25. Yet the G line from Denver Union Station to the end is $3, but ours is $5.25. So talk about that at NADA. We're also interested in giving you, we always send you the agenda for NADA, but NADA's the day after this one, and sometimes people don't want to do two in a row. But if there's anything on the NADA agenda that you want me to put onto the Smart Community agenda, we can do that. The other thing is Bike to Work Day has been canceled until, or postponed until September 22nd, although Dr. Cog is saying that's not for public knowledge, which we think is a huge mistake, because typically Bike to Work Day is in June, and it's not going to happen this year in June. So we're doing on a couple of things. We're going to work on a summer bike campaign throughout the summer. And Catherine is part of North Glen Heel, and they're going to do full moon bike rides this summer for families. It's pretty exciting. We're going to participate in that kind of thing. So all in all, I think this has been, we're almost at 9:30. I think this has been a pretty full agenda, but really wanted some guidance. And I think you've given us quite a bit. And you haven't burst our balloon or stomped on our dreams. Vince and I were just saying the other day, we're so glad we're married to people who don't stomp on our dreams. Because sometimes you got to run with your dream, and I don't want my board to stomp on our dreams either. So let's keep this marriage intact and give us a little leap to flesh this stuff out and bring it back to you. And that's what I got, Madam Chair.
Well, how can I say anything over and above this? I mean, really, and for me, and I think I could speak for the board, we appreciate everything that you and the staff do. I mean, we know that you've got a full plate, and I personally appreciate everything you do. We've got the experience and the knowledge that you bring to the table is tremendous. I mean, we are so grateful for everything you do. So, and yes, it was a full agenda, so I'm not going to hold anybody up, so unless someone else has anything to comment.
I just have one quick thing.
Yeah, Deb.
Other than the staff all knows how I feel about them. We have moved into our new office, more or less, which is in the old Metro North Chamber office in the Community Reach building. And the conference room, if and when you ever want to have a meeting again, is available for your use at no charge. We've had a few, and this goes for everybody. We've had a few bank members that have had their board meetings in there because they can socially, we haven't used it yet, but they have, because it's a big room, as you guys know, and you can socially distance in there. But I just wanted to make sure to throw that invitation out there. It's open for your use whenever you want.
Thank you, Deb.
Well,
That's
thank
great.
you. We love our relationship with ACERP, and we think there's a symbiotic advantage to all of us being together in this. And that reminds me of that. I talked to Lynn Baca, the new commissioner, and we all know Lynn. She served on NADA as the chair, and she's been in Brighton City Council for years. And you know, Joyce, she's like you and I, she's been around the block a couple of times with the political stuff. And
Right.
she did mention that if we want to do Transform this year at the Air and Space Port, that she can get it for us for no
That's the
charge.
one in Aurora.
And so, yeah, well,
Yeah.
but I still think, you know, we have gone outside of our arena when we went to Panasonic, and so just keep that in mind, that if we want to do something like that, we should maybe in the next couple of months find a date that might work, and then work on what's next. What else should we be out there promoting?
Yeah. Well, you know,
Every year I think we do a pretty good job. Yeah.
yeah, and as far as that particular space, it's large enough that social distancing should not be a problem if we decide to do it. So,
Yeah, and so now we just have to think of a topic. So all of put your thinking caps on and send us topics that we can get started on. You know, the N-line opening was ideal for us last year because we could just glom onto that. So this year, I don't know what it is. Let's think about it.
okay, all right. And Pedro, thank you for your comments. Thank you. All right, so with that, I appreciate everybody attending, and thanks for the agenda items. A lot to think about, Karen. So I will adjourn. Pardon? I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much for everybody. See you next month. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.